Yo, what it do, family? Welcome back to what it do, black man? It's your man, Nathaniel Belcher. We are into part two, man. So we're going to go into part two. Again, I did make this disclaimer in the first video, but I don't want you to take this out of context. But the things that I'm talking about right now are well with me. I have gone through therapy for them. I am just being vulnerable right now, talking about the things that I've gone through to hope in hopes that it will allow other men to be vulnerable. I am talking about things that I probably haven't talked to a lot of people about, but I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna share. So yeah, man, let's just keep rolling. So let's go, Mike.
All right, Nate. So we've covered, a good bit of your life in that first video. So in this second one, let's take a closer look at your adult life. And as with most of us these days, the most significant events in our lives, in our young lives, is when we make that big leap and find that special somebody and jump the broom. So I know you've told me some very heart-wrenching and at the same time some very funny stories about your marriage. So why don't we delve into that a little bit?
So I'm just gonna keep it 100, man. I sucked. I mean, I can't put it no other way, bro. Like, I sucked at it. I think as
what do you mean that you sucked at? Why do you say you sucked at?
So first off, honestly, I had things that were inside of me that I was dealing with that I never addressed. Right? So even though I had talked to my wife about being molested, I had talked to my then wife, about everything that we talked about in the video, I never sat down and talked to anyone professionally. And they reared their ugly head, right? Just things would come up. And, as men, most men don't know ish about marriage until they meet a woman that they decide that they cannot live without, right? But growing up as men, we know ish about marriage, right? We don't know anything about marriage, but I'm gonna be here on time, and I can't be too drunk to not stand up and say I do. I mean, like, how many guys at my wedding I'm gonna do this, and at my wedding we're gonna do this? Guys don't do that, right?
Well, all we talk about is how we gonna get drunk and how we gonna act the fool at the bachelor party.
But
we don't talk about how we gonna make sure we have a successful marriage. You right about that?
There is nothing that prepares a man for marriage, and that is probably one of the biggest things that you're ever gonna do in life, right? There's no books. There's no nothing. I mean, like, okay, there might be books, right?
I was about to say, it's thousands of books, man.
There might be books, right? But
how many of us are reading those books?
Exactly.
And the answer is
we're not
many.
Men are not going out getting a book on marriage.
No.
We're not getting a book on relationships.
No.
We ain't doing none of that, right?
Black people by and large don't read.
See, Doc said black folks by and large don't read. And that very well may be true, right?
They don't read stuff like that. They
Exactly.
read all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But so, I will say I would have been a lot more prepared if the man that is sitting in front of you now had gotten married at 31 as opposed to
20.
Yeah, right? And the reason why I say that is because now I've gone through therapy, right? I've learned a lot about myself, right? And then also in learning about myself, I learned what I like, what I don't like. And I've also learned how to set boundaries. I never did any of that. I never set boundaries. I know what I like, but, spaghetti, right? But you really don't know what you like. unless you really
Okay.
go through it,
Right.
right? So I just feel like that I am, as a man that sits in front of you now, I think that if I decided to get married now, I would be much more better equipped for the rigors of marriage than I was when I was married.
Well, you know, the thing about marriage, from a psychological standpoint, is that two people go into a marriage looking at, okay, this is the man of my dreams. We get it on all the time.
Talk about me, y'all.
It's really good. He does everything to me I ever thought about, and I reciprocate.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody really talks about, okay, we're having all these things. What are we going to do after it's over? What do you do after the sex is over?
Post nut clarity.
Right.
Post nut clarity. That's a good term.
Yeah. What do you
And-
do then?
Very seldom, and I include myself in that because I got married when I was home on leave from boot camp, and I'm sure you can relate to that, Mike. And I knew then where I was going, which was Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got home, my wife to be, we got married, and I told her before I left, I said, listen, I want you to get off the pill. So I didn't think I was coming back.
I can understand why.
Yeah. So, but I had the wherewithal to look that far ahead to make sure that my child would be taken care of, and my wife at the time would be taken care of as well.
Okay.
So to have that kind of understanding about what marriage really means doesn't fall in the laps of everybody because they don't have the exposure to people who can tell them anything different. Yeah.
And that was my point, yeah.
Yeah. So so we talk about the cyclical avenues of relationships and how transitory they are and how fleeting they are and how they come about in short periods of time. But if we mask all that together and we put this all under the umbrella of what is marriage for real, that's never addressed.
Right.
That's very true.
And it's funny how most of our prior relationships have not taught us how to deal with a long-term relationship. Because I remember my mother used to tell me all the time, don't you ever get serious about one girl. Growing up as a teenager, you're too young to be serious.
Right, yeah.
And then now that you married, you have to be serious about one person. It's like, I don't really know how to do
this. And that's my point.
That ain't what
I
my
don't know
mother
how to
told
do
me.
that.
That is my point. That was my point. Like
Right.
I had no clue. Right?
None of us have
So
a
I know
clue.
how to do it for 4 months.
Right.
For 6 months.
I know how to do it for a little while.
Yeah.
but fleeting.
That's
for those
what I'm
short
talking about.
Periods
I know
when
how-
it's still exciting and there's fun all the
Exactly.
time. And we get bamboozled. It's not like
Yeah,
that
exactly.
all the time.
It's
It's
not.
just like that right now because we young, we get to know each other, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, okay, but now we can settle down, gotta get a job, we gotta make sure we have a place to stay. You like this, I like that, we like the other,
want this,
now it's I want that, I want the other, now it's all this, now. Man, that's a lot of responsibility. You know what? I think I need a break.
Yeah.
Right, and you can't do that in a marriage. You can't just come home one day and say,
You
"Hey,
shouldn't do that.
I need a break."
Right.
Or
You
I
shouldn't
need
do that.
I need this.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. You shouldn't do it. So, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, man, I would give myself as a husband, bro. I would give myself a D- or a F+. That's just me keeping it 100. And I don't want to get into it. I really don't. But yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
We don't need to go into any details about that
Yeah.
at this particular junction. But we did touch on something earlier. We kind of scratched on the surface of therapy. And I think we should delve into that a little bit right now, Nate. So why don't you tell us about your first experiences with therapy?
So I therapy, the first time I tried it was 2011.
And why was that?
2011, man. I had things that I was dealing with, and I couldn't I couldn't find an answer to them, right? But in therapy, it ain't about everybody else.
It's only about you.
It's only about you. And when I went to therapy in 2011, I was like, okay, yeah, I did do that wrong, but what about them?
Right.
No, we're not talking about them.
We talking about you.
I was like, I did that, right? I did this wrong, but what about what they did? No, it don't matter what they did. It's how you responded to what they did. So in 2011, I got some things cleared in my system, but the important stuff, because I was still pointing, it didn't do me no justice, right? And so that was the thing that I really realized. Like, when you do therapy, it's on you, right?
Right. You only get out of it what you put into it.
Absolutely. But you have to have the mindset of, I need to do whatever I need to do to get past this, right?
I need to do what's best for me right now.
Exactly.
Right.
Right?
And therapy is about helping you figure out
Absolutely.
what you need.
And you have to be truthful.
Well,
You cannot lie in therapy.
you can, but it doesn't help. If you lie in therapy, because in therapy, you only lying to yourself.
And
it doesn't make
that's
sense.
that's
to
my
lie in
point.
therapy, right?
That's my point. You cannot lie in therapy. You got to keep it 100.
But if the therapy continues, the truth eventually comes
Will come
out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if the right questions are being
Asked.
asked,
Absolutely.
and you told me this last week, and now you're telling me something
Something
else
else.
This week, right?
what's going on that you're leaving out?
Right.
And Doc, honestly, that's where I was. 2011, that was my first shot. I was leaving stuff out. I wasn't being 100. And so again, I got some help, but I really didn't get a lot of it out, right? It wasn't until I went back in 2014. What happened in 2014, everything in my life that society said made you a man, it was gone.
What do you mean by that? Keep it real.
The house, the car,
The marriage. Relationship with the kids.
Well, my kids, I got a different relationship with my kids. But, all of the things that are outside of you that you acquire, and they say, oh, you're a successful man, all that was gone. Everything was gone. And so I was like, well, what do I do? My business was in the toilet. I wasn't working because I spent all this time taking care of my mom before she went into the home. And so now I'm like trying to get my footing. I'm trying to find my identity because I don't have nothing. Right? So I'm feeling inadequate. And so I had to humble myself. And
how did you do that?
I had to be real. I had to not lie to myself in therapy. I had to not look at anybody else for anything that was going on in my life.
And that's hard.
It is hard, but if you want control, it ain't hard. If that makes sense. If I want to have control of what's going on in my life, then I need to take the responsibility out of everybody else's hands and keep it in my own hands.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, that's what we need to do. But it often takes us time.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking from experience, because I cannot lie. When I went to therapy the first time, I was in denial, just like you.
Absolutely.
What about what they did? What about this? What about that?
Absolutely.
What about give me a break?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about you, what you did, Mr. Bradford, what your motivations were. Why do you think you did that?
Exactly. So, like I said, went through that, and that's when I really started to, once I was truthful with myself, I really started to get a lot of help. I got a lot of tools, right, of things that I could do that could keep myself up. I got, just a wealth of knowledge about the things that were going on in my life, and that I had this perceived notion about these things, and the notion that I had was not the truth. It wasn't.
So-
absolute truth. Yes.
So let's stop here. So for your listeners, Nate,
Yes, sir.
let's really concentrate on what therapy really means
Okay.
from a psychological point of view. All right. Therapy is about discovery.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. And in order to get discovery, there has to be truth. But before you get truth, there has to be some loyalty and some trust between you and your therapist.
Absolutely.
All right. So I had a mentor that coached me through my doctoral program, and he was German, and he proved to be a very good tool for me from a realistic point of view. And he told me psychology is a business.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at it any other way, and it is. He also said to me, don't expect to get a lot of white clients, because white clients aren't going to come to a black man for advice. They're not wired that way. Now, does that hold true for everybody? No. How many white clients? How many white clients have I had in a period of 25 years? 3. But those aren't the people that I'm really concerned about.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm concerned about the black plight.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm concerned about young black men who don't have the advantage of sitting down with a mother or a father or an uncle who can show them the right way. My dad always told me, even when I told him about my therapy through the VA,
Mhm.
which has only lasted maybe 12 years, Mike.
Mhm.
And when Obama came in, they turned the VA all the way around and made it available to us, because the Vietnam War was a forgotten war for a very long time. So he got us the help that we needed. So it was during that period of time I was really able to kind of sit down and really understand why I was the way I was. And I was that way because I wasn't getting any help.
Absolutely.
I couldn't do it by myself.
Right.
Right?
Although we all try.
We tried.
We all
Absolutely.
try to do it by
But we
ourselves.
don't go.
I don't need nobody's help.
No.
Yeah.
And see,
I
my-
got this.
Right.
My dad always told me, hey man, bite the bullet.
Right.
Why are you seeing a psychologist?
Mm.
You know? I said, well, Dad, your time and my time is totally different.
Absolutely.
You were in World War II, but you weren't in combat. So you can't compare those two wars in terms of my experience and your experience.
Right.
You can't put a number to what being understood really means. PTSD, post-traumatic stress condition, you can't attach a number to it. So it's if from 1 to 10, how do you feel? No, it don't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
My PTSD is different from anybody else's trauma who wasn't in a war.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean mine was more severe than yours. It was
It's
different.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you can't attach a number to it.
Absolutely.
There's no way you can do that. So through therapy, there's discovery. Through discovery, there are sources. Through sources, there are emotions that have to be identified and explained.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Mike, where are we at now, brother?
Well, we talked about therapy, and there's a couple different kinds of therapy, and I know you mentioned a couple different periods of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also, right before the therapy, you've told me in the past that there was a kind of a mentoring golden era,
Man,
which
that
I'm
was-
sure had a lot of therapeutic value for you. Maybe you didn't know it at the time, but
that I was in my purpose, man. That was when I learned. It took, and shout out to my dudes at South Shore, man. If y'all watching this, if you all get a chance to see this, South Shore changed me, man. It let me know what my purpose was, why I was here, what I was supposed to be doing.
South Shore, you mean the community?
I mean, the high school.
The
So
high school.
I had a mentoring program at South Shore. It started out in 2009, and I started basically because my girl was the assistant principal there. She was like, man, come and do this. We need this. Come help. And she kept bugging me. So I went up there. Reluctantly, I went. And
You mean like a mentoring program? They needed
Yeah,
a mentoring
they
program.
needed a mentoring
And she
program.
thought you, strong black male,
Yeah,
could,
she was
could
like,
relate
yeah,
and be a positive example to all
exactly.
these young black males.
Yeah. So I was like, man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna talk about?
You
know,
gonna be
I don't
you.
have nothing. And that's essentially what she said. She said, come be you. She was like, look, you got the background with martial arts. Just come and do that. And I was like, okay. So essentially what I did was put together a program that had aspects of, hand-to-hand combat. But in addition to that, what I did is I taught the anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, the geometry of movements, right? So now I'm in a school and I got Pookie, who ain't been to school in 3-4 days, coming to the class. And now when he go to science, he talking to the science teacher, about anatomy or physiology or kinesiology. She's like, where you getting this from? From Coach B, right? That program ended up having such an impact on the school that the principal was like, look, I got to have you in the school. I was like, okay. So essentially, I created a mentoring program out of nothing. The key components were I was going to show up every day and I was going to love on them. That was it. And I was going to get in their ass when they was wrong. Flat out, and love them when they was right. That was it. Everything just kind of...
You make it sound so simple, but it couldn't have been that simple.
For me, it was simple like that. Because that is already built in me. If you've been around me, you've been walking through Hyde Park with me, and we see dudes and they 6 whatever,
Not
and they
just-
come grabbing.
Not just Hyde Park.
I mean, but you see it, like, it's just in me. I think that when it's authentic, right? When it's real, people just gravitate, and it's just in me. I'm a black man, right? I've had a checkered past, right? I've had a life that was
stuff.
big, right?
Stuff.
So I just always, that's what I defer to. And so when I talk to young black men or black men, period, they're like, you get it. You understand. I empathize. Empathy is big with me, right? You're not going to get no sympathy out of me. But I am very empathetic to people. So much so that I had to learn how to set boundaries.
I think for the purposes of our broadcast here, we need to discuss right quick what we mean by empathy and sympathy, because I think it is widely known that black men towards most other black men have neither empathy or sympathy.
Absolutely.
And I think that is part of our collective shame and guilt and responsibility to do something about it.
I would absolutely agree with you. I think that a lot of times, and here's why. Because we as black men, a lot of times our stuff is discarded and pushed off to the side. Here's what I mean. So we'll be going through a traumatic experience, right? And we'll go to somebody to vent. The first thing they tell you to do is man up. Or shut up, move on, right?
What you complaining about? What
Right.
you crying about? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? What you crying about, right? And then if you go to a significant other, right? And you're vulnerable, a lot of times that's weaponized against you and used against you. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I know y'all know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. You've
Yeah.
been vulnerable to a woman about something, and
And they'll throw it in your face at
Man,
the most inconvenient time.
you come on, man. And this ain't. I'm not trying to bash my sisters because you ain't gonna see me with nothing else. I ain't messing. That's just me. I love my sisters, but
Well, that could be a time where the trust is dislodged because you've been violated.
absolutely.
You know, you bare your soul to someone and they take advantage of it. when it's
Absolutely.
convenient for them.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that's what you just said, Mike.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So those are the things
They use it against you.
that they use against you, and those are the things that you remember,
Right.
that
You
you
do.
store in your subconscious
Right.
mind.
You do.
So when Mike comes along, Nate comes along, that's the first thing they saying, well, why should I trust you?
Right.
Because that person did this to me, that
Right.
person.
And that person said she loved me.
Exactly.
And if I can't count on that person,
Right.
Why
why,
should I
why
count
would
on
I
you?
even take a chance on somebody else?
Why would
so
I-
I have to mean mug. I have to be confrontational all the time. I have to be so brash towards my brothers. And why?
Mhm.
Why are we like that towards one another?
But how often do you guys encounter, and I encounter this a lot. Well, number one, I've never got along with black men.
Well, that's because you were a police officer, right?
Well, no.
No, but he talking about before that.
Before that.
Really?
I never did. I had a select group of friends even when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
The other guys, they couldn't relate to me. All right. So I never really got along with black men. But here's the point I'm trying to make. There are men that I approach daily
Mm-hmm.
while I actually speak,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah.
Men
I
are
get that.
walking towards me and they drop their head so they don't have to speak.
Right. Or they look right at you,
Yeah.
and you be like, okay, looking at me, it must
Yeah.
be okay to speak, and you
Right.
speak,
And
and
they
they
Look at
you
you
like,
like that.
Yeah.
why the you saying something to me? Because
Exactly.
you was looking at me,
Exactly.
you know.
Here's what I'm gonna say to that. I think that is a I think that is a Chicago type of a thing. I've spent a lot of time in the South, and I just don't get that. I get that from Chicago people. Like when you move around this city, people in this city are they on edge, they on defense,
Yeah.
right? And the city to me, man, just has a air about it. It just it's something on this city. But like if you go for me, if I go to the South, I don't have that issue. I speak to people. I speak all the time. But I get you here in the city.
Yeah.
It's something different.
And it's a different dynamic in the South.
It is. It is. Having grown up in the South myself, my
Mhm.
my father's parents from Memphis, and before that from some little town in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, and my mother from the northern third of Mississippi. Spent every summer growing up from like age 4 until age 13 or 14 down south.
Mhm.
Every summer, all
Mhm.
summer.
All summer.
And yes, people in the South do speak. But I'm going to disagree with what you said about Chicago in particular, Nate, because having had the opportunity to live in other places around the world and visit other cities from one end of the country to the other, I find that in most places, people will speak when you speak to them. Most places. But again, when I'm in a predominantly black neighborhood and I'm around mostly black men, I find that for whatever reason, if I had to put a number on it, 8 out of 10 of them got an attitude with me and they don't even know me.
Right.
And that I don't understand why, and that has been a constant thing throughout my life. I never had, and maybe it's because I'm from a large family.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a lot of friends outside of my best friends were always my cousins because I got a lot of them. I had a brother who was just 2 years older than me, and I didn't need the other boys on the block. I mean, I knew who they were, but to me,
Yeah.
they was a bunch of rockheads. And then at school was even worse.
Mhm.
At public school, and I felt like I went to a good public school. The teachers were fine. The administration was fine. The rockhead other black boys who weren't interested at all in education. All they wanted to do was fight. And it's like, man, I haven't done anything to you. Why do you want to fight me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know you. I don't know, dudes just walk up to you and hit you for no reason. Come on, man. Or, say something to me because my mother worked at the school. Well, it's not my fault my mother worked at the school. She got a job, it's at the school. So what?
Yeah.
But they always some jealousy, always some envy, always some, and it's like, unlike you, I I was smart, but I wasn't a jock. I wasn't popular. I was just some nerdy looking kid with a big head and even bigger glasses. You know, who had some fine sisters. You know, so you know when you got fine sisters, guys always want to hang out with you, so they can get at your sisters. And it's like maybe I was defensive about that. You know, man, don't talk to me because you only want to get at one of my sisters. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I don't know, but it was. But I found common cause with you when you said you never had, you never got along with other black men, and I could posit a couple things. Your skin color having one thing to do
I was
with
going
it.
to talk about that.
Yeah, because my family is a lot of dark skinned folks, and there's also a lot of folks who look just like you or very much like you. A lot of them had fine wavy hair just like yours. You know, white features. You know, okay, it's white people somewhere in my family. We can tell. You know. No secret, nothing to be ashamed of, but darker skinned people always jealous of lighter skinned people. Yeah. And it's like,
I think
it
goes both ways too.
They think they better than us. Well, you never said that, I'm sure. But, you know, and just because you walk with some pride or with some purpose and stuff, you think you better than everybody else. Man, I'm just minding my own business. You ain't this, you ain't that. You think you better than everybody else. Well, okay, maybe I am better than you, and maybe that's why you jealous, you know. But I'm not competing with you. I'm competing with myself. But we don't get that. We don't understand that. I know I never understood it.
Well, the conversation will never go that far. Number one.
Oh, absolutely.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because when you get a conversation such as you're explaining right now, you know, a fight's gonna start. You know. Either somebody steps away, and if you step away, chicken shit.
Then you a punk.
You a
coward.
punk. Yeah. So, I mean, I hit before I argue. And when I know it's not going to go any further in a conversation, well, I mean, why, man? You know, why? Right? And that goes from A to Z, and before you know it, boom, you know. So I said, well, let me hit first and talk about it later. But I just never give people that opportunity. And you're so right, Mike. How I look, the way I talk, has always been a problem when I'm dealing with darker skinned brothers. Always. Now, does it happen with light skinned brothers? Oh yeah, it does. It does. But now they're looking at education. Now they're looking at job status. Now they're looking at, oh, well, I didn't know you wrote a book. Yeah. Well, what makes you so great that you can write a book? I said, well, I sat down and wrote it.
Effort.
That's it.
Effort.
Commitment.
That's it.
Commit, right.
Yeah. I've got a friend, I don't know if I told you this story or not, Nate. He and I met when we were like 12, 13 years old. Did I tell you that story? I didn't. Okay, Mike. And this guy now is 75 years old. I'm 73. We were like brothers. So he's moved around a lot, got off into drugs. His wife got him hooked on drugs. That set him back a lot of years. So when he comes back here, he and I reconnect. And we're talking on the phone, and he's trying to get his VA benefits, yada, yada, yada. So I give him some people to talk to, and just kind of seeing if he's going to follow through is what I'm saying. Well, it took a while before he even followed through, you know. And now he has to talk to me. Now that he knows something about me and my background, now he has to sling $50 words at me, you know. And I told him, so, hey, John, pull back. I'm still Ronnie. I may have an extra pair of shoestrings, but I'm still Ronnie. You know, just talk to me like that. Ain't nothing you're going to tell me that's going to be surprising. So I wrote this book called Simply Common Sense, The Discipline of Uncommon Reasoning. And these are kind of the things that we're talking about. Because as black men, we don't reason that way, where it's less confrontational and it's more self-intrusive. You have to dig within to come out with something substantial if you want to heal.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I told this guy, my friend, I said, listen, I'm going to send you these books. One is a textbook, one is a workbook. I want you to read the book, because I wrote it for myself. I really did. And I said, this absolutely applies to absolutely everybody. I don't care gender, race, whatever. It applies to everybody. So you have to identify exactly what your truth is. Your absolute truth. And if you can't do that, you're not going to get even close to healing your wounds. This guy didn't get past my bibliography. Because it told him things that he did not know. And I guess he felt intimidated. But he couldn't get past that. I said, well, after you've read the bibliography, John, read the text.
Right.
You know, don't get caught up on, I mean, I have to introduce myself. I mean, you know, people want to know who you are and what you are and what you've done.
Right.
You know?
Where you come
So,
from?
to be empathetic, Nate, you have to have been where people are. You know? I couldn't tell you how it is, what it feels like to be a millionaire, because I'm not a millionaire.
Right.
I can tell you I'd like to be that, you know, but I can't give you an example on how to do it.
Exactly.
You know? I can't tell you how to be a drunk if I've never drank.
Right.
You know? So people have to understand, well, damn, Nate's been where I've been, Mike's been where I've been, they've done this, they've done that. And he has some understanding about what could be going on with me. So once you establish that, and that's the first thing I find that you have to establish, is trust.
Absolutely.
You know, that you're just not a light-skinned guy with wavy hair and wearing a three-piece suit. You know, it's more to me than that. So I don't come in with that dress. I don't come in with that attitude. I blend, you know, and that's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely. So, Mike, where we at now, man?
Well, we talked about therapy. We talked about a little bit about marriage. Kind of scratched on marriage a little bit. Talked about the golden age of mentoring. But there was a period after that. I think you called it the wildness, the wilderness. Let's talk about the wilderness period a little bit.
So the wilderness period came after therapy. It started. So the wilderness period came. I was at my lowest. It's 2016. Everything had fallen apart. My my marriage. We were separated. My kids were hurting. I could see it in my kids' eyes. You know, living in two different places. My grandmother had passed, my uncle had passed, and my mother had passed. And this was probably early 2016. And how I got to the wilderness period was this way. I was at the barbershop, you know, the Black Man Sanctuary. And shout out to Woogie, a.k.a. Clipper Daddies, man. Miss you, family. I'm going to connect with you real soon. My barbershop, hanging out. And, you know, man, me and him just kind of happened to be the last couple guys still there. And we was partaking in some greenery. And, man, my right side of my face, man, just started to, you know, what's going on, right? Then my right arm started to tingle. And I started to get, like, real tight chest compressions, right? Like, I'm like, what the, am I having a heart attack? What? So I'm talking to, you know, my guy, the barber, Woogie, I'm talking to him. I'm like, man, I ain't feeling real well. And I'm telling him what's going on. And he's like, man, even your speech a little slurred. Let's just go to the doctor, right? So we go to the hospital. And as I'm getting there, man, the pain is getting worse. My right arm is hurting worse. My chest is hurting worse. The palpitations are getting worse. I'm like, this is getting really, really serious. So going to the ER, and by the time I get there, I go to triage, and now I'm literally talking like this. So they just took my basic, and they ran me back and started running tests, man. I'm talking like this. You know, my heart rate is elevated. I'm freaking out. And an hour or so go by, they come back, and they throw the thing on the
EKG.
Mr. Belcher.
Have a stroke.
You straight. What, you healthy as a horse. What you talking about? Tell us what's really going on. I'm like, what you mean? What are you dealing with? What's going on in your life? And I'm like, well, my mom just died. Oh my God, we're so sorry. My uncle just died. Oh my God, and my grandmother just died. Oh my God. I'm separated from my wife, my kids. Oh my God. So I have all this laundry list, right? And they pull out how stress affects the body and manifests itself as physical ailments, right? So my body is going through all of these changes because I have all of this stress, this anxiety, and this pressure that I've never dealt with. And so the lady, the nurse, opens up a pamphlet, and at the bottom it says, these are some of the symptoms, or not the symptoms, but see, these are some of the causes for your symptoms. Have you been recently separated from your spouse?
Check.
Check. Have you been recently separated from your job?
Check.
Have you relocated or been separated from your living space that you've lived in for more than 10 years?
Check.
Has someone in your family deceased?
Check.
Are your children under mental stress?
Check.
So I got this laundry list of things that I'm going on in me, and they're like, this is all stress, Mr. Belcher. You got to find some way to manage this, or else you're going to pop. And so I went into what is called bereavement therapy, right? And in bereavement therapy, as you talked about earlier, when you said, I'm the only person going through this, right?
That's how you feel. That's how
you feel, right? You feel like that when you're hurting, you're the only person going through this. But I'm sitting in therapy, right, with a woman who has lost her husband, her son, and her daughter in an accident. Now, I lost my grandmother, my uncle, and my mother. They were spaced out. And those are three people very significant to me. She lost three people at one time. The most important people in her husband and her two kids. They died in a car accident on their way to go get her. Totally changed my perspective.
Man, I thought I had it bad.
I thought I had it bad.
Until I met you. Until I heard your story.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I met someone who was almost identical to me. They lost their grandmother, right? And then their dad passed, and then their sister passed. So now you got it just as bad as me. I lost my grandmother, my uncle, and my mother. Still three people. So again, you learn, and you just sit and you talk and you share. It's so much that came out of therapy for me, right? That helped me live with them no longer being here in the physical plane. But what I learned is all I got to do is do this. There's my mama. There's my uncle. And there's my grandmother. Right there. Any way I want to see them, doing whatever I want to see them doing, talking to me however I want to talk to them. And when I'm ready to finish the conversation, that's all I got to do.
Well, I would say that's a special gift because most of us don't have the ability to compartmentalize like that, to focus. I know I don't. I don't have the ability to focus like that. So kudos to you for that, my brother. I guess that's something you was born with. I wish I'd have been born with it.
You got some gifts, Bart.
Thank you, sir.
You got some gifts.
All right, family. That's the end of part 2. Now we're going to do part 3. Peace.